Let's explore the ruffling foot and the many features that it has. So to begin with, this foot is a snap-on foot. And the other thing that it has is the ability to wrap around the needle bar, and the movement of the needle going up and down is what actually makes this foot gather fabric. And it can actually pleat it as well. So see how I'm simulating this movement? This area right here on the foot will allow you to take one pleat or one tuck every single stitch. You can also modify it by lifting this and moving it into the second slot so that it will only take one tuck every 6 stitches. This is for every 12 stitches. And lastly, if you just want to simply disengage it for a moment, you won't be taking any pleats at all. Now, as I've mentioned before, on different feet, when you see different screws on it, that means you've got the ability to adjust. And because this foot itself goes on so many different baby lock machines, you might need to make some adjustments. So don't just assume when you take it out of the box that it's going to fit perfectly. Let's head over to the machine and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so let's take a look at this foot before we even put it on the machine. And I've already loosened up this screw and this screw. And as you can see, this screw allows me to move front to back, and this screw will allow me to move this piece side to side, with my goal being that when I have my needle drop, it goes right into the center of this hole. And so the very first time that you put this on your machine, you might want to do, and you'll need to do, the same thing that I'm doing here, which is loosen up those screws. And now let's put this on the machine itself so that you can see the adjustments necessary. I'm going to introduce the foot into the machine, and I'm going to slide this back so that I can position it right over that snap-on bar. And at the same time, what I need to make sure is that my black piece of plastic here is getting looped up and over my needle bar itself. And when I have it in position, it'll just snap in place. Okay, now that I have the foot in place and it's snapped on, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to lower the needle into the machine itself. And what I need to do is make an adjustment so that it can go in without being restricted. And so this is where those screws that I've loosened up will allow me to position the foot either side to side or front to back. So did you notice how I just pulled this piece back here? And now what I'm going to do is drop the needle. And so if I need to, I can loosen that screw so that I've got more play in it and I can get it where I need it to go. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is make sure that I am good side to side. And so again, these are adjustments that are made much easier when you're positioned right over your machine itself. And once you have it positioned, then tighten those screws up. And then what I'm going to do is take a couple hand stitches just to make sure that I'm clearing it. So I'm just going to rotate my hand wheel towards me. Now, as I do that, you can start to see how this ruffling foot works. It's going to grab fabric with these little forked pieces here, and it's going to slide it in, and the depth that it takes is indicated by 2 different things. The first one being this adjusting screw in the front, and it's also somewhat predicated by the stitch length that I have. And I've got my machine set up with a stitch length of 2.5 millimeters. So I'm going to now just rotate my hand wheel towards me, raise my presser foot slightly, and let's put some fabric in here. Now this also has some nice adjustments for you to be able to slide your fabric in. And so I'm going to begin by just merely taking my fabric and bringing it forward. And so it might get a little snug because those forks are pressed down on the fabric. So I've got my fabric underneath, and now I'm just going to rotate my hand wheel towards me. And did you see how it made its first tuck? Now it's making the second tuck. So what I can do now is slide my fabric. There is a little piece that's here, and I'm going to tuck it underneath, and I'm going to bring it forward. And what this does is it will keep my fabric even all the way down the length of it as I'm ruffling it. And so remember, I'm on every single stitch, I'm taking a tuck. Now this is taking some really deep, generous tucks. Let's rotate this in the opposite direction to make this dive a little bit not as deep, and let's just see how this impacts the stitch. That made it even tighter. So we're going to take this, I'm turning it as far as I can to the right. Okay, rotate my hand wheel towards me. I'm going to raise my presser foot and let's just pull that fabric out and take a look at it. So that took a very long piece of fabric and really did gather it very tightly. And again, if you don't want it this tight, play around with some of the adjustments on this part of the foot itself, which will impact this. Now that we've done a little bit of gathering, let's run a piece of fabric through where we're only doing one tuck every 6 stitches. And to do that, I'm going to lift up and drop that back down. And so here, I'm going to take another piece of fabric, and on this piece, I've actually finished both the top and the bottom, because one of the other ways that you can bring your fabric in is to have it come all the way up to this edge here, which will allow you to make your gathers, or your tucks in this instance, a set amount down from the edge so that this could actually be top stitched in place. And this time, this is going to take one tuck every 6 stitches. And so you'll want to manage your fabric. And so this is a place where I would say you might want to keep a little stiletto close by. So this is even going in a little bit evener. And that's happening here because of the fact that I'm coming in a certain distance. Let's take that out and look at it. So that's a much looser look. And again, this can be top stitched down in place. Now, the other thing that I really like to do is to pleat grosgrain ribbon. And so here I have a piece of ribbon, and this time I'm going to do this every 12 stitches so that you can see what that looks like. And this time, again, I'm just going to use my little self-guiding piece of metal here on the front in order to be able to get this closer to the edge of my fabric. So normally you might have to take a couple stitches so that you can get this in place. There we go. Now, at any time, you can always make an adjustment on the fly to change the way that your stitching is so that this is an easy thing to make an adjustment to. So there you go. That's a beautifully pleated piece of ribbon, and you can actually set those pleats if you want by going to your iron. But this versatile foot works on all Baby Lock machines. Just remember, once you've set it for your machine, you'll never have to do that process again. You can find the ruffling foot at your Baby Lock retailer along with lots of inspiration.